and the name Errol Walton Barrow, His Excellency, and the name the Honorable James Cameron Tudor will never be buried away from the consciousness, even of the youth of this country. 1961 was a revolutionary moment. I said it when I was on your platform, and I said it to applause. My views are consistent. I understand that the government, I don't know if it is embarrassment, intends to withdraw from the drastic reforms that it had, and I'm not going to use the word propose, that it had threatened. This government threatened the freedom-loving people of this country. When this government threatened to dismantle the education that emancipated the lives of the oppressed, the dispossessed, the disrespected, the disadvantaged, these threats were made by this government. We have a voice, we have a party, we have a moral cause, we have a movement. And that mission remains high on my agenda. The government has spoken in relation to education of its purpose. The word purpose and the word motive may seem at times synonymous. You may express a purpose. I'm inquiring as to your motive. If an institution has elevated large segments of this population, why do you want to dismantle it? Why do you want to destroy it? Why do you want to interfere with it? Particularly when those proposed reforms were implemented in other countries, and those other countries knew and accepted the folly of the reforms. You will pardon my strong emotion, but if a man cannot get angry against injustice, he isn't worthy of anger against anything. And so, Your Honor, from here on, I will try not to shout being so close to you.
Otherwise, you might be put out the chamber. I remember.
But if this government finds that it is invested in the marginalization of people, in the poverty of people, and that all you do for them, a hamper at Christmas, a fete at crop over, a ticket to Hennessy, and we feel that we're doing something so marvelous. We feel that that is the essence of political stewardship. These patronizing interventions into the life of the poor. You speak to me of your purpose. I inquire about your motive. And I suspect the motive is one of perpetual dominance over the lives of the poor. They must be elevated even at the expense of this government. They must be. And in that enterprise, this parliament now becomes like the cathedral in which government worships against the elevation of the poor. And I'm going to come to specific enterprises of this government. And the cabinet has become the kingdom of heaven. I beg your pardon, sir. The parliament is like the cathedral in which this government worships, and the cabinet, the kingdom of heaven, except that there is no dispute as to who is God in there. There's no space in the consciousness of proud old-fashioned Bajans for autocrats. When I came, I said good afternoon to my parliamentary colleagues. My heart sometimes goes out towards you on Thursdays. Some of you smile. My heart goes out to you on Thursdays. And the public blames you for not resisting this dreadful set of circumstances in which our political traditions are now reduced to power exercised by one. I bring to you, Mr. Speaker, through you, the news to this Parliament that even if you don't find the strength within you to resist it, Honorable Prime Minister, the people of Barbados hold it against you. The omnipotence of a Prime Minister. The political omnipotence of a Prime Minister. Let us speak to the reality in our country that now suffers much. Let us speak about the real experience of a country that used to be a better place. Let us speak to our experience in a country that used to be able to find its soul. I have pressed against your consciences enough, Honorable Mr. Speaker. I have pressed against their consciences enough. And I will relieve them and relieve their consciences by turning to the budget that we heard yesterday. The Honorable Member for St. Michael Southeast is timing me. And I will say to her now that I may say a few things later, and I will hope for her sake that I do not get to say them before my time expires. Today our focus will be on government's economic policy, its social policy, which will include the cultural, and I will bring attention to issues of governance that undermine the economy and that help to destroy investor confidence in Barbados. All is not well. We are in an environment where this government is now employing the largest number of consultants ever in the history of political administration. And that may be vainglorious government, but it causes the suffering of thousands of Barbadians who could have been employed with the same monies that support those few who live luxurious and opulent lives at the expense of the people that this government sent home last year. And many of them have not recovered $500 a week without national insurance. They wanted the money, they needed the money, but they wanted some respect as well. Is it too much for them? And even marginalized as they were, could they not have been kept in that marginal employment by this government? I beg your pardon, sir. That's a little anger. But But it is anger justified when we have people who don't even occupy an office space for 8 hours in a week, calling themselves consultants. And I will come to specificity. Consultants. And poor people in this country, those young bodies that we saw during COVID, the only part of them you could see were their eyes, but you knew they were young because of their bodies. Black bodies in the southern sun. I think the honorable member for St. James Central is familiar with these things. He being given to music and poetry. And if they have these consultants, it is not for this government to ask this opposition to help with any proposal for the future development of this country. I've known of cases in which you hear criticisms, oh, he didn't offer any prescription. That is not my job. You got the consultants, use them. You got the consultants further impoverishing the poor in this country, use them. We will not be distracted in our right of reply. And we will not be distracted in the exercise of this constitutional mandate. We have a party, we have a cause, we have a moral cause, we have a right and we have a duty. And we will not resile from that duty. This government must face the truth. And when we tell you of how you have obviously done wrong, you may extrapolate from that what is the right thing to do. Get rid of those consultants, and some of them and the majority of them, and put the poor people of this country back to work. Where's your conscience? Where's your conscience today, government? Through you, sir. At home, sitting down on a side step with the dismissed employee for whom this government could not even pay national insurance to satisfy the IMF. The worker became the $500 worker in this country became an item in the IMF program. But emerged these super people called consultants. Where is your conscience? Where is your conscience today? I have come to the point, Your Honor, where I wish to be able to identify some of the obvious weaknesses in this economy. The very obvious weaknesses in this economy, because a budgetary occasion is an occasion in which we deliberate and debate and discourse on economic performance. Now, before I go to the weaknesses in the economy, I'll say this. This theory, because it is a theory, that we have had 11 consecutive quarters of growth is only partially correct. Coming out of COVID, we would have had growth. There's no country that did not experience growth after COVID. COVID was a lockdown. The place was locked down. Every country had growth. But I say that since COVID, the growth of which this government speaks is not real growth. Growth is calculated according to the unit of a dollar. That is one way of calculating growth. In fact, it is the most convenient way, because you can't go down by the port, or you can't go by every supermarket, every retail place, or every mechanic and ask him what he has done or calculate goods. So you do it in dollar terms. you attach a dollar value to the question of growth. And where you have rampant inflation, what appears to be growth is really not growth. It is inflation. You have, in a school yard, for example, the lady who comes to the school and she sells her chocolates. Each chocolate costs $5. And 5 boys at lunchtime come and buy 1 chocolate each. In other words, 5 boys come and buy 5 chocolates. And they spend $25 on Monday. On Tuesday, so you have $25 in that schoolyard economy. And those 5 boys come back on the Tuesday. And the lady tells them, well, you know, the chocolates are $10 today. And they say, fine. And those 5 boys buy the 5 chocolates at $10 each. So the dollar value within that schoolyard economy has gone from 25 to 50. But it's still 5 chocolates. That's the point. Still 5 chocolates. There has been no growth in the exchange of goods and services. All you have had is inflationary growth. And that is what this government has been doing over the past few years. The government has been measuring economic growth by a dollar value. The government has been attaching inflationary figures to the question of growth, to the question of the exchange of goods and services. That is what the government has been doing. So that when the unaware and the indifferent hear that there has been economic growth, let the truth meet them, and let the truth meet them head on, that the economists in this region and beyond this region reject the government's position that there has been any real growth in this economy. And if there's real growth, anytime a country has had 11 quarters consecutively of growth, employment increases. And this government is coming and telling poor people in Barbados that it is buoyant, that this economy is buoyant, and to quote the Honorable Prime Minister yesterday, that Barbados is abuzz with activity, and there's confidence, and there are positive economic indicators. What happened to the poor people? It ain't so positive for them. I didn't mean to say this, but I can say it now. There's positivity only at Haman's. I'm going to come to that shortly. Where are your consciences? Where are their consciences, Mr. Speaker? I'm going to come to that very shortly. Let us identify the underlying weaknesses in this Barbadian economy. 1, there's unbalanced growth. You can rest now from the people's attack. Let us get academic. Come, let us reason together like good parliamentarians. And when you have unbalanced growth in the economy, heavily dependent on tourism, you have a problem. And that is Barbados' problem. That is Barbados' problem. And I see the shoulders of the Honorable Member for St. Michael West Central. He is concerned, Your Honor. He is concerned. The little man, what's the Harris Paints ad again? You have a big job, Honorable Member. You have a real big job. And I know you want to do well. I know you want to do well. But all falls on you in this economy. And that is problematic. And I say it is problematic because the government is refusing the economic planners in this government. The economic planners that are advising this government seem not to be directing it in a path of diversification. pardon the pun, but this country is ripe for diversification. You're also frightened for the earth. You're also frightened for dirt. This country is ready for agriculture. Where's the member for St. Mike's, for St. Philip? Looking for pepper? You better export some to Canada. You're really looking for pepper in truth. You better try and get the fields planted and export some pepper to Canada. And so, unless the honorable member for St. Michael West Central does his duty and does it well, we are at the mercy of tourism. And that is not a healthy state, Prime Minister. What are you and your economic planners doing? You writing pretty speeches? You listening to me? Well, don't cry. Now, I do know that there are technocrats who question the real returns of a tourism industry. And while those discussions rage, there's a part of me that still feels some compassion for workers in tourism. I know technocrats will come and they will take out their calculators and they will wonder, well, is it really benefiting Barbados? My answer is yes. All of us patriotic Barbadians like to drive across Barbados and see the H cars and the restaurants full and the taxi drivers getting work and the airport busy and the planes landing and taking off with regularity. We love to see that. We all do. So while the technocrats exchange between themselves, I still want to express support, Your Honor, for the tourism industry. I still want to do that. Because without it, I don't know what Barbados would look like. It certainly would not be abuzz with activity, as the Honorable Prime Minister termed it yesterday. But that remains a problem within the economy, that we are over-dependent on tourism. And for a long time, our tourism planners have been trying to convert Barbadians with the mantra that service is not servitude. And sometimes we need to do that by reminding Barbadians that the tourism economies of London and New York are perhaps the largest in the world. Two of the world's financial centers. And they make millions, billions of dollars from tourism. So that tourism is not only sun, sea, and sand, but tourism is a product in a world that develops, that is associating itself with matters of culture and heritage. And I know that the honorable member for St. Michael West Central pays rapt attention on matters of tourism. So that tourism is not only an island activity, tourism is cultural. Tourism involves human social intercourse. People love to travel. And I say that to say that we need, although we are overly dependent on tourism, we still have a long way to go in developing this industry. And I know that it is an industry not only that my party supports, but all Barbadians support it. They all do. Now, one of the other weaknesses in tourism is the slow pace of investment among Barbadians in the hotel plant. You know, we drive around and we look at these impressive buildings. And I'm among that group. It does not, and it has not occurred to me before my recent education in tourism, that a lot of these plants, tourism plants, are foreign-owned. And that is a weakness within this economy, because the result of that is the repatriation of funds to the owners of the hotels. And one of the other problems within tourism is the underinsurance of many of the hotels in this country. Unless somebody talks to the insurers, and I know most of the hotels are coastal, and therefore the insurers will convince them that insurance rates need to be high. But a lot of hotels in this country, the smaller and the intermediate hotels, are suffering from underinsurance. And I'm educated and told that if we have a major hurricane, that many of those hotels may not be able to reconstruct with any immediacy. I was speaking about the construction of hotels. And I know that the government is a little nervous on this issue. In 2018, when things were fresh, we were told that from Needham's Point to the harbor, the coastline would be dotted with hotels. And 6 years later, Mr. Speaker, where are we? Who is asleep on the job? Where are the hotels? It is a dream deferred. The words of the American poet Langston Hughes, a dream deferred. Hyatt is now a dream deferred. I will go on to the second weakness in this economy. The second weakness in this economy is inflation, the persistence of high prices. And that has dominated much of my discourse to this point. And we cannot have an economy that will grow. And to use the Honorable Prime Minister's term, an economy that will be abuzz with activity, if we are afflicted by high prices. High prices become a disincentive against spending. That is obvious. Not only a disincentive, but an impediment against economic activity. Who can shop without money? Only a thief. This government has failed to control prices. And that is why I began by saying that extreme poverty portends for this country. And if that is not the experience of any of you, it means that your lives are insulated against your own constituents, against the reality that visits their lives. That is the sober and truthful message that must be told to Barbadians, that this country, our country, your country, mine, is in trouble. It is in deep trouble. And the sooner this government admits it, the sooner this government begins to tell the truth to the people of Barbados, the truth of inflation that is crippling this economy, the sooner this government explains that national crisis, that dilemma in the lives of people, the sooner you begin to admit it. You may win a place back in the hearts of the people, But I suspect the hour is too late.